In recognition of his leadership, he received the Oliver Johnson Award from System-Wide Senate. So let me turn it over to Shane and Joel to do the session. Thank you.
Well, it's my privilege to be here with you today. I've also had the honor of working with probably about a third of you on committees over the years, and with Jim and David on the UCRS Advisory Board, which is very dear to all of us in this room. But I've been fortunate enough to have been sitting around tables with Joel for, I think, 2 decades now. And Joel, what made you start to get involved in Senate work, and why and how?
Uh, well, it's been fun sitting around the table with you for 20 years, and it has been 20 years. The It's interesting. I went to a small liberal arts college, Carleton College in Minnesota, and in a way, it ruined me for life because the ethos there was a community of scholars. That idea that we would all pull together and we knew each other, uh, and from a student's point of view, it really felt like a community. I mean, I don't know what it was like on the faculties, whether they felt that sense of community. I think they did, but I've always treasured that. The I came to UC from Harvard, and oh gosh, there wasn't much of a sense of community at all. I mean, every time I went to a meeting, I was worried that somebody's going to take over my lab. I mean, that kind of um, dog eat dog kind of place. Um, and then when I got to UCSD, I wasn't so used to this business about service. And people said, well, Joel, you got to do something. And so I picked a committee that looked like it didn't meet very often. A student affairs committee, which is student dishonesty. And, for those of you who've been on student affairs, it's a little like obstetrics. Most of the time, you just sit around and do nothing. And then 10% of the time, it's a god-awful nightmare. And so that was my service on student affairs, and I tend to be a quiet person, and I didn't know that I thought you should show up when you're supposed to show up, and you shouldn't talk too much, and you should be polite. And if you have something to say, say it, but sit back. I didn't realize that this was a recipe for getting appointed to other committees. And uh, so I think that kept me going for quite a while in service.
You've been extraordinarily productive in your academic career and academic achievements, and yet you've provided a tremendous amount of Senate service and other service all the way through. Did your Senate work slow you down, eat your time, or did it buoy you up in other ways?
Ooh, yes. Uh, uh, it took a lot of time. My consulting work, either to the Senate or to the feds, uh, my wife points out that there was one year, she counted the days. I wasn't aware of it. She said, Joel, do you realize you've been away 200 days out of this year? And I hadn't been aware of that. The and Of course, I got all those miles on American Airlines. So I'm pushing to 3 million miles for what it's worth. It took a lot of time to do all of that. I didn't find it had an adverse effect on my career because I had wonderful people to work with, and I think what I found is that collaboration is vital, whether it be collaboration here in this room, in the Senate, or in the lab. And good collaboration is like a good marriage. It's terrific. And bad collaboration is like a toxic marriage. So I looked around and found people that I really enjoyed working with, and I did everything I could to support them, and they supported me. When I retired, the thing I worked on the most was making sure that my collaborators were well taken care of because I had this big lab. I wanted to make sure that all the grants were transferred and the staff who I loved would have new jobs. So I don't know. I mean, I think I also found it just refreshing to sit down at a Senate meeting uh, next to somebody who was in dance and talked about the difficulties of choreographing dance and how do you transmit that information. And I just thought, this is so refreshing. This is so different. I mean, most of us knock our head against the wall, uh, but this was a different side of the head to learn about. So I wasn't as bruised. I felt it was energizing, but absolutely it took a lot of time.
You've talked a little bit about leadership. What attributes do you think effective university leaders have? Or what should they have?
Well, you know, politics. So Robin Williams had this spurious etymology. He says politics, that's poly, many, and ticks, avaricious, blood-sucking creatures. And so, I mean, some people say that that's what politics is, but politics, the etymology comes from community and polite. I think it always helps to have two ears and one mouth. And I sometimes some people reverse that ratio, but I think that's helpful. Um, I've also I also feel that bridges are very expensive, and that if we get irritated, uh, we say something, it takes a long time to build that bridge. There was a computer program at Stanford in the 60s uh, called Perry, stands for paranoid. And it was a computer model. You could type in, these were punch cards, so you had to really, you could type into Perry and it would have a dialogue back with you. And Perry had his delusions, and Perry was very upset about the Italians and his mother and whatever. And he would calculate the algorithm in this program was everything you typed in, Perry would evaluate on an anger dimension, an irritation, and a trust dimension. And the undergrads, and when Perry finally had it up to here, he left and he'd log off. And the undergrads back then had a contest to see who could piss off Perry the most rapidly. So anyway, I think trust is hard won, and once you got Perry distrustful, it made it much harder, and he would be more likely to leave. I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
Well, maybe we'll come back to this topic, but oh, maybe you were rebuking me. But do you think we, the faculty, are any better at selecting our leaders than the administration is at selecting theirs?
ooh, I don't know that. I think I've been around long enough to see some wonderful people and some terrible people. whether it be faculty or administrators. I think administration has a very tough job to do, and I think faculty have a real tough job to do. Um, I was on a search committee, uh, senior executive search committee a while back, and we had the outside search consultants, and UC has a way of a framework, describe the job function, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And um, we had this job function thing that the outside consultants had come up with, and it didn't make any sense to some of us on the committee. And somebody said, "Wait a minute, give this to me, and I'm going to put it into AI." And see whether they can come up with a better job description and attributes to what we should search for. And golly, it did. But we couldn't use that because officially we had to follow it. But I think somehow when we search for positions, it's tough. And most of us when we get married, there's a decision that is not taken rapidly. And it takes a lot of time. And the attitude is you get to know each other. And I don't know. Some people aspire to administrative leadership, and some are good at it, and some have a view of what it means that doesn't correspond to reality. So I don't know. I don't know who does it better. I mean, we've all seen department chairs that are terrific and terrible, and we've seen it all along. And some people in high administrative capacities, they're chosen, they're wonderful people, and they get in that job, and it eats them up alive. I mean, we have one prominent president of a prominent university, you may recall, got severely depressed and incapacitated because he had to face so much. When you're an administrator, you're going to annoy somebody every day. And you start off with a goodwill allotment, and it starts going down, and you've got to find a way of dealing with it.
Well, in the way that our leadership system and our governance works, we have been given the foundational gift of shared governance. Is it a bit like the Constitution? It only works if all the players believe in it.
Oh, yeah, that's a sore point. I think there's so much on the plate for administration right now, and I think they have all uh, I have their hands full dealing with the external environment and needing to respond to that external environment. And I remember when I started off in the Senate, uh, Atkinson was our president. And when the Senate met, this was in the days before UCOP met in Oakland, we met at Berkeley in the Berkeley Faculty Club, with all the dead antlers running around on the walls and the dust and all that. But
This is the academic council meetings.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And but Atkinson sat down with us. He'd sit at the table at lunch break. He would go through the smorgasbord line, as did the provost of I can't remember the provost's name back then. There's been a retreat uh, from, I think, in the leadership of UCOP, from the faculty. Uh, I think the leadership responds to the legislature, the government. They're dealing with an administrative portfolio. I do not envy them at all on that. I think it's a pity. I don't feel they interact that much with us anymore. I think their idea of shared governance is probably different from ours. I think most of the time they're polite, and we try to be polite back. But it's a change time, and the problem with the Senate, in particular, is that we are slow in responding. Oh my gosh, we really are. I mean, we have to. Something comes down from Franklin Street, and then it hitchhikes across and goes around to each campus, and each campus sends it to its committees, and it's been very difficult for us to respond um, as quickly as we should. I'm not sure we can. Curiously, I find that the CUCEA can respond actually rather quickly. This is interesting. For instance, on the security issues with RASC that we've been preoccupied about, we hopped on that right away, and RASC and HR, the administration was cooperative and working with us, and it took the Senate a couple months before they were able to push that issue as well. So I think the shared governance it's a challenge responding quickly, and administration, perhaps because we don't respond as quickly as needed, administration runs with the ball. Whether they're running in the right direction or not, that's another question.
So you touched on a lot of different things there. I'm going to pick up on one of them. You mentioned a former president who sat at academic council meeting and stayed for the whole thing and brought their provost, and there was a lot of engagement. It was said of that president that his management style was shoot, ready, aim. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's quite fair, but it was said that was said of him. But it did appear that he was able to pick directions and pick directions on principle. You also mentioned that our current administrative leaders are very much externally facing. Is it possible that they are actually not picking directions, but picking the easiest path of appeasement?
Uh, so I think they are externally focused, and the question is, who has control? Can the university advance its own agenda, or is the university always playing defense? And this is a very difficult time. In all of our lives, we haven't experienced this much antipathy to university, and I'm sure that they have to focus all their time. Now, whether I think I sense the another question that you were raising is, should they be fighting harder, pushing more aggressively? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Uh, and I look around at other university leadership throughout the country, and I'm not sure what best serves us as educational institutions.
So are we losing our way if we don't stand up for our ideals, or are we preserving our heritage and future?
I think we're trying to live for another year at a time, and hoping that what we will have 2 or 4 years from now will be more amicable time. Whether we've destroyed uh, the university in the meantime, I don't know the answer to that.
So I've often felt that as faculty, we're thinking about the university in the terms of an overall career arc, 3, 4 decades maybe, with thinking about that very long-term view, that long-term future. And we tend to be mission-driven. We are asked to do our teaching, our research, and our service, and this is what we do. Maybe a little bit skeptical, but I've always felt that the administration are looking to the next budget cycle. And we have very, very different timelines, very different short, medium, and long-term objectives.
Absolutely. And, remember the Peanuts cartoon, Linus is there and is getting ready to kick the football, and then Lucy always grabs it at the last minute. That's what we're engaged in with the California legislature every year. I mean, there's a budget proposed and then a compact for the future, and we're congratulating ourselves. And there's the budget revise, and then the compact is buried. So we do all this planning and we hope, and then things get in the way. I guess the question is, how do we build in the future in long range planning in a direction that we want to go in, as opposed to just responding to the legislature or Washington. I think I think long range planning is helpful with faculty. Some of the most rewarding committees that I've been on have been where faculty and administration are working as equal, and we're not trying to put down administration, and administration is not trying to cavalierly assert the direction they think it needs to go. But when we've really just said, look, let's do some long range planning, those things have been very valuable in my experience.
Well, I'm thinking of a stack of UC PB, UC Planning and Budget reports, very insightful, very thoughtful. I'm thinking of the Gould Commission, the Commission on the Future. I'm thinking of all these wonderful documents that are never referenced. Sorry, I'm not.
No. Actually, I want to go off on a slight tangent. I'm a psychiatrist, and I've been somewhat involved over the years in questions about student mental health, and I want to kind of tell you a story about what happened to UC and the Regents in student mental health. And I'll mention a name because it's very public. I'm not violating confidentiality. I don't know, it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, during one of the Regents' meetings, somebody got up for his 3 minutes, and he introduced himself, and he said, I forget his name, Mayor Ojakian, and I'm concerned because my son killed himself at UC Davis in his junior year. And I know that there were other children. And Ojakian's wife gave her 3 minutes to him as well. And they made a presentation about concern for the mental health of their children and how UC was treating them. I've never seen the Regents so clued in, because this was personal and this was long-term planning, and this is something that everybody understood. And actually, Bob Dines was president then, and he called me up and said, look, can you work on something? And so on the Senate side, we had some Senate people and we had administrative people at UCOP, and we really worked together we were like circuit riders for mental health. So we were going around from campus to campus to campus. It was really exciting, and we were able uh, to make considerable changes because we were pulling together. I'm not sure. Um, I'm not sure that administration looks on us as partners anymore in pulling together, and I'm not sure that we look at administration as partners as much as we could either. But
I hope we do. And we've also got to remember, as you mentioned, that the regents are our partners. And we often tend to forget about that key part of the partnership. That's where all the governance comes together. But there are other examples. President Udolph's Retirement Options Task Force, thanks to Jim's leading the dissenting statement, we still have a defined benefit retirement plan. So there are other examples where the president's office did work closely with the faculty on contentious issues and get good results. We still have retiree health. That was a question that President Napolitano set to a task force. So we have these successes. We may not have enough of them, but they do exist. Maybe we need to be better partners going forward.
Uh, sure, sure. I do feel that right now is just different. I mean, it's so different now that from the academic senate point of view, oh my gosh. I mean, we've been struggling on some issues in with HR, as you know, in terms of the total remuneration and all these things, and we're simply not talking to each other. And frankly, Jim will be appalled when I say this, but I think we should just stop. And what's done is done. And what we really need to be doing is saying, okay, the next time we're going to do a total remuneration analysis 10 years from now, before we ever do anything, let's agree where we want to be and what the analysis is, what the goals are. Because I think what's happened is that um, the administration gets consultants to do something, and consultants don't necessarily. Uh, I don't know what administration's goals are. I don't know what faculty's goals are, and it's muddled. And then you get this thing. It's like a bass-o-matic. Do you remember the Saturday Night Live, the bass-o-matic, where you drop this fish in a blender, and that's the bass-o-matic, and you turn the blender on. And so I think some of these consultant things that we're doing that come down from on high, they don't seem to be leading anywhere that anybody wants.
Well, I disagree. I think the consultants are fulfilling a function for the administration. The administration know what direction they're looking for, and they're looking for the key to that door. Um, so I'm a lot more skeptical of consultants than you are, but I don't want to upset Jim. He's fought this battle 3 times, once a decade. I've been part of that battle twice, but this is his third time, and it is the same rock that the Senate Sisyphus is pushing up the hill each time. So this would be an example of something that's gone wrong every decade for 3 decades.
Yeah, that we just haven't fixed it. And I do know uh, that if ever asked to serve on that particular panel, that would be one of the rare instances where I had the wisdom to duck. Um, but
Well, I think I can quote our friend Dan Hare, who said, if I'm ever asked to serve on Total Rem again, it'll be rather harder to find me.
And we have to come back to something. People like you and Dan and Jim, people who've suffered this, who've done this, you guys need our thanks. This is very hard work, very frustrating work. And at the end of the day, you have to scratch your head and say, was it worth it? I think, when I ran a lab, uh, the only way of attracting and retaining people was you got to love them or you have to pay them or both. And we don't love each other enough. We don't thank each other enough for doing the service that we do. And I think we were having this conversation before you and I sat down about the pipeline for leadership. You know, we gotta support each other. We gotta as faculty and help the new faculty. I mean, a new faculty member comes in with so much debt. They have to live so far away from campus. All of those issues that that we didn't have, and I think the if we love each other enough in terms of the younger generation of faculty, we'll be able to continue to attract them into Senate service, and that will help. If we cannot attract and retain faculty willing to add their time and effort, then that means by default administration has to do more and more, and that's not a good recipe for administration nor faculty. But
So you mentioned the here and now. Certainly on this campus, our campus faculty community has many deep divides, socio-political issues, and so on. We can enumerate them, but we are a divided faculty. There are many ways of, parsing this, but there are deep divisions on the campus. Now I'm asking for your professional advice in how do we set about bridging and healing those divisions?
Hmm. I think having some rules of conversation help. The uh, we tend to demonize each other's views, and I think that's something we have to watch out for. I also think breaking bread together is important. I remember um, at Harvard, one of the few instances that I remember with fondness about faculty life was that there was an interdisciplinary group that was talking about health policy. And we got together and had dinner and a speaker and got to know each other. I think that's a model. The stand up, give a talk thing, it doesn't foster as much as when you're sitting next to somebody and you're really talking.
You opened with a comment about a community of scholars. And maybe that's easier to do around a medieval refractory table, that we could get together like this and break bread. Is it just much harder to do that when we've got a bigger, more spread out community?
Well, yeah. So I was at UCSD. I was there for 40 years. And in the beginning, we had the VA, and on the medical school side, we had the VA, and then we had the general campus. And the medical school hospital was downtown, and the VA was close to the campus. And Jerry Burrow was the vice chancellor for health sciences back then, and he built another hospital. But he developed a hospital in La Jolla, the Thornton Hospital, because those of you who know La Jolla will appreciate this. He wanted to make sure that all the underserved people of La Jolla would be able to have UC health care delivery. Uh, that that was charming. Where am I going with this? What happened then is that we had another hospital, and you've got people VA based, you've got people downtown based, you've got people La Jolla based. You need so many pulmonologists per square patient to man an ICU, and it starts to get very difficult because we start living in our cars as you're driving up and down from place to place. So to respond to your question, I think as we've grown, it's been a challenge because you then start to interact just with the guys in your hospital.
Thank you. One final closing question, Joel. And again, you studied some of the darkest reaches of the human soul, and yet you maintain a cheerful, positive optimism. Can you help the rest of us with that?
So I've been studying victims of massive violence for decades. And actually, my first research was the coping of Nazi concentration camp survivors, asking this question about how did you get through it more or less intact. And this is not a DSM diagnosis, but I think some of us are congenital optimists. And we look up at that very dark sky and we see light and stars. And I tend to be a little bit more optimistic. I do have faith that things will work out. For those of us who focus more on the darkness in the sky, I think the warmth that we have together, the group support that we can offer each other, is the other central thing for coping.
Thank you for all the light that you've brought to the university.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you. Yeah. Switch gears. Shane, thank you. You've been a buddy for decades, and the questions that you asked are wonderful questions to think about. It is now that time for me to pass the gavel. Beginning with the first CUCEA chair, Albert Hofstadler from UC Santa Cruz in 1987. Um, we've been at it for a while. We've been getting together, learning from each other, trying to get a sense of what's going on in the university, meeting respectfully and usefully with administration. And I think it's been a good ride. And I am delighted to turn the gavel over to Amy Block Joy as our new chair. Amy earned her PhD from Berkeley, and her work has focused in groundbreaking anti-poverty programs in California, an effort that secured $150 million for the UC system, created 500 jobs for the UC community, and also supported really meaningful faculty interactions across all the UC campuses. This is work that is a wonderful template for the future. We're fortunate to have her as our next chair from her experience, her tenacity, and commitment. Please join me in welcoming Chair Block.
meeting, but
Okay.
it's been an exciting journey, working as chair-elect with you, Joel. It's been an exciting journey working as chair-elect with you, Joel, and with the board. And I look forward to continuing this important journey with all of you CUCEA members. Thank you. Thank you, Joel.
With that, we can be adjourned for the next 6 months. Lunch is around the corner. Shane, if you can, stick around, join us for lunch. Okay.